Hey, what's shaking, guys? Angel of the Night here. We are back again with the Grand Challenge 2025 Part 2. And as you guys know, I entered in 2 Exeggutor teams into the competition with 2 different Switch consoles. So this is actually team number 1, as you guys have been seeing here for quite some time. This battle is a little bit older, as the Grand Challenge has not been around for quite some time. We actually just finished up with Global 2025 here, Part 3, not long ago. And I've got a ton of Regulation G battles to come your way, but this one is Regulation H, so I apologize that it's a little older, but you know what? I'm going to try to upload as many of these battles as I can. So our opponent here has an Annihilate and a Primarina. They're going to go in for the Protect. Now, one thing that I am going to try to do here is we're going to try to get the Tailwind set up here with a Murkrow, so that way we can actually boost up the speed of our entire team. And of course, the Sneasler is going to go in for the Dire Claw. That's pretty much a given, considering the fact that Primarina is a big threat Pokemon, especially if it gets its Hyper Voice and Throat Spray off. Annihilate on the opposing side ends up going in for the Bulk Up, which is actually going to boost up its attack stat and its defensive values. So that could potentially be a problem as well. However, if we can actually go in and get a Foul Play off, we might actually be able to do some damage off onto that Annihilate. When it comes in for the Primarina, we know that Throat Spray is going to be a thing, but honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the whole Terrestrial to Poison. So this Dire Claw is actually not going to do very much, but if it was potentially possible to get it to go to sleep, that would have been ideal. However, we have no effects coming off onto that Primarina here at this point. There goes the Foul Play. That actually takes about 1/3 HP away from that Annihilate. That's pretty impressive, considering that this is a Evoluted Murkrow with no attack values whatsoever. Obviously, Foul Play works better when you have lower attack values. We actually get the Stomping Tantrum from the Annihilate, taking down the Sneasler. And of course, the Hyper Voice is activating the Throat Spray, and surprisingly enough, Murkrow hangs on here. Actually hangs on to just a very small slither of health. Now, Annihilate, of course, is going to regain a little bit of health there with the leftovers, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to come in here with our Exeggutor. Now, this is the star of the show. As you guys can see, it's all sparkly and shiny. We are going to have to go in and set up the whole Sunny Day here, so that way we can activate the speed onto the Exeggutor in case the Tailwind actually goes out. So we are going to get that Sunny Day boosted here, and then we're also going to go for the Protect onto the Exeggutor, just so that way we don't take a hit from that Annihilate or even that Primarina. Those 2 Pokemon definitely could one-hit knock out this Exeggutor, so we have to set things up accordingly. When it comes into this battle here, we definitely want to get this Primarina out as soon as possible. So Exeggutor, here we go, we're going for that Protect. Primarina is also going for the Protect. And as you can see, we're going to get that Sunny Day boost here at this time. So we are going to get that Sunlight turned up into this battle here, and there's the Rage Fist going right in for the Exeggutor. Now, as you guys know, Rage Fist actually does more damage the more hits that Pokemon has. So if we had managed to actually hit Annihilate twice, it would have done quite a bit of damage. Even just one hit to that Annihilate could actually be a big threat. So what we're going to do here now, I'm pretty sure that the Exeggutor is going to be able to outspeed the 2 opposing Pokemon. We're going to swap out the Murkrow here. We're going to go in with the Indeedee, and that's going to be able to set up the whole Psychic Terrain. Now, Psychic Terrain, of course, is going to make things so that way priority moves are not effective, you can't put a Pokemon to sleep, the whole 9 yards. But the big thing with that is that if we do go for the Expanding Force, that is going to allow us to hit 2 Pokemon at once rather than just 1. Now, our opponent here actually manages to swap out the Annihilate for a Pelipper, and that's a pretty smart play considering they're going to take away our Sun and set up the Drizzle. However, we've already got a Tailwind behind us, so we know that we should be able to actually outspeed some of these Mons. And the Expanding Force actually does do a serious amount of damage to the 2 opposing. Primarina, for one, gets fully knocked out, and we actually take the Pelipper down to its Focus Sash. Now, our Tailwind has actually disappeared here at this time, so that means that the opposing Pokemon should be able to likely outspeed this Exeggutor. Rillaboom coming in here as the 4th and final on the opposing side, and that actually does change up the Psychic Terrain into a Grassy Terrain. And Grassy Terrain, of course, is going to be able to heal up all Pokemon onto the field. At the end of every turn, you get a little bit of health back. It's almost like you have leftovers onto your Pokemon as an attached item. we're going to swap out the Indeedee. We're going to go back into the Murkrow here and maybe potentially get the Sunny Day set back up. However, the Grassy Glide or even a Fake Out could be a problem here, and usually when an Indeedee is onto the field, they'll go for a redirect move. So our opponent might actually just automatically lock into that slot, and that's exactly what happens here. So unfortunately, Murkrow goes down. We will not be able to have any kind of sun at this time in the battle. Here comes the Hurricane, and of course that is a good thing that we are protected. One Hurricane under the rain would have actually knocked out Exeggutor, I'm fairly certain. So we've actually got to come back in here with the Indeedee now. We're going to change up the terrain back to Psychic terrain. And again, that's going to boost up any kind of Psychic type moves. Now, one thing we'll probably want to do, I'm sure Follow Me would be important, but also as well, we do have the ability to go for Psychic, just in case that Pelipper does have the Wide Guard. So as you can see here, we are trying to set it up here for that whole Expanding Force to be able to hit 2 Pokemon at once. And it looks like the Rillaboom is actually going to be swapped out here, probably wanting to change up the terrain there later on into the battle. Annihilape comes in, and Annihilape is probably the wrong choice Pokemon to actually come onto the field, just because it is Ghost and Fighting, oh my god. So here we go with the Expanding Force. That is going to be I believe it's a ×4 weakness to Psychic, so it actually has no chance of survival here, so we just go ahead and knock it out. Psychic, oh my gosh, I'm inventing words here now, guys. I'm inventing words. So the Pelipper did protect here. It actually does not go down from that Expanding Force, and the Rillaboom comes back onto the field. So it is going to be able to take away that whole Psychic terrain and set up the Grassy Surge there once again. Okay, now with the Pelipper, of course, there is the risk of the Wide Guard. Wide Guard is a very common move that you're going to see onto a Pelipper, and it will be able to protect both Pokemon on the opposing side to any moves that'll be able to hit 2 Pokemon at once. So what I actually ended up doing here, I ended up going to go in for the Psychic, so that way we can deal some damage, and then that way we can also maybe go for like an Expanding Force later on if we actually wanted to. However, at this time when I'm looking at it, we don't have the Psychic terrain up, so I was probably thinking at that time that maybe I would go for like an Expanding Force, or maybe somehow get the terrain back up. I don't know how that would have occurred, but we ended up going in for the Protect here, and there is the Hurricane, of course, going into the Exeggutor. Good idea that we actually went for the Protect. There is the U-turn with the Rillaboom. Of course, that Pokemon cannot go back to the party and does take damage from the Rocky Helmet. And we're actually going to go in for that Psychic here and pick off the Pelipper. Pelipper, of course, being the biggest risk here onto the team. Being that it's a flying type and my main character is a grass Pokemon, so under the rain that Hurricane would have just automatically hit and just one-shotted us, would have just knocked us out. Rillaboom, of course, still on the opposing side, not as big of a threat as you would think, but I am going to go in for the whole Follow Me situation here, and then I know we are under rain right now, but I'm going to go for the Terrestrialization here, and I'm going to go for the Terra Blast of Fire. Now, I'm hoping that this is going to be enough to be able to pick up the KO off onto the Rillaboom, because honestly, I'm a grass type, under rain with that fire capability. I don't know if this is going to be fully capable to take it out, but I figured that this is probably my best shot, considering it's a stronger base power than the Expanding Force. And then, of course, with the Leaf Storm, if I did manage to go for that, it's not really going to do anything to that Rillaboom. So Rillaboom going in for the Wood Hammer here, going to be able to pick up the KO off onto the Indeedee, and of course take some damage from the Rocky Helmet. And then, of course, with the Wood Hammer, he's also going to lose a little bit of health there as well. Here we go with the Terra Blast. That is Terra Fire, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it does 80 base damage. As you can see, not quite enough to be able to pick up the KO off onto that Rillaboom. However, if he does happen to have Stomping Tantrum, we could be in for a bit of an issue. The rain does finally stop, of course. The grassy terrain is still in effect. We're going to go in for the Terra Blast here for our last and final move. They're going to go for the High Horsepower. That actually picks up almost the KO here. We actually managed to live by about 4 HP. And then we actually finish off the Rillaboom with a Terra Blast. So that is a good game to my opponent, and as you can see, Exeggutor is still ruling the roost. Alright guys, take care, have a good one, and I hope you enjoyed the battle. Peace out.